everybody. Heidi Harris here with another fun video. As many of you know, I am based in Las Vegas. That's my hometown. And so even though all of my videos don't necessarily talk about Vegas, I do keep track of what's going on in town. And there are some things that are happening that are not very promising for the future. One of my very favorite people who knows this town, I mean, as if he were a native, right? Scott Roeben, his Twitter handle is Vital Vegas. VitalVegas.com is his website. He knows everything about the town. See, unlike me, he's out there in the trenches, on the strip, doing things. I avoid it like the plague, but he's actually there. So he has a real handle on the pulse of what's going on. How are you, my friend?
All right. Thank you. I do try to get out and about a little bit, but we've been doing this so long, as you know, it gets harder to be patient with some of the nonsense. So
Yes.
I'm more of a downtown kind of off strip person, but my beat is Vegas, so I have to get in the mix.
Yes, you do. I just talked to a friend today whose husband works for a well-known attraction whose name I will not mention. And one of the things that he talked about was about 60% of their business comes from Canadian tourists who are not coming here now because they're mad about Trump. Now, you and I disagree on politics, and we don't really talk politics when we do these podcasts. But
we have to.
Well, we have to now. I mean, whether you like Trump or not, whether you think the tariffs are a good idea or reciprocal or whatever, however you view it, it's having an impact on Vegas in a big way. Numbers are down, but it seems a lot of the people are Canadians who are not coming here and some other folks. So talk to me about what you're hearing, because, they're not shutting this attraction down yet, but I'm looking down the road and I'm thinking, if 60% of your business is Canadian tourism and they're not coming here, we're in big trouble. And there was a whole story in USA Today about how Canadians are not coming to the US because they're mad at Trump. And of course, Vegas is a part of that. Talk to me about what you're hearing and seeing.
Yeah, I don't want to question your friend's stats, but there's no business in Las Vegas that's 60% Canadian. That doesn't really exist, because the Canadian tourism is maybe 3 to 5% at most of the visitation to Las Vegas. It's a big chunk of foreign visitation, or a decent chunk, and that's mainly because the visitation from Asia has gone down so much since the pandemic. So Canada is it's a very small percentage. I equate it to the number of locals that do business on the strip. It's right in that 3 to 5%. It doesn't, on its own, it doesn't really move the needle a lot, but as part of a bigger picture, it's something that Las Vegas did not really need right now. And that's because the trend overall has been that visitation and revenue have been flat or down maybe 6 or 9 months pretty consistently, where that growth, that bubble that we saw after the pandemic, that was beautiful for the casinos because people just came. They lost their minds after the pandemic. They had spending money. They weren't thinking about saving for the future. They were thinking about having fun. Life is short. They were dealing with their mortality, letting go. That has a lot of great benefits for Vegas and a lot of terrible things, because people start to be rude. There's a lot more road rage, a lot more yelling at frontline employees.
That's interesting. So I can understand how people who are cooped up for a couple of years just wanted to let their hair go, right? I can get that. You felt like people were ruder after the pandemic. That's fascinating to me. I'm not arguing with you, but I think that's interesting that you felt that people just seem to have, just no manners.
Yeah, no, I think the reaction to the pandemic caused a lot of long-term damage psychologically.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Part of that was, one life to live, treat every day like it's your last day. Well, if you treat every day like it's your last day, that's how I gamble. And that's a very unfortunate situation because there's tomorrow's rent, there's a car payment, mortgage, whatever. But so people were living it up. And I think that reality was starting to sink in, that bubble wasn't going to last forever. It just happened right around the time there was quite a bit of chaos in the world. We can talk about politics today. I think it's pretty well known we're on kind of opposite sides of that spectrum.
Let the record show, though, that when I talk to you, my people are happy. When you talk to me, your people are not. So let the record show where the intolerance is coming from, because my side doesn't care what your politics are. People who like me and agree with me about things are happy to have you on my little podcast. So just
Well,
let's just
I'm
put it out
always
there.
happy to talk to you. We definitely avoid politics for a reason because I don't think any friendships are at risk, but
No,
there are
of course not.
definite conclusions drawn about people, right or wrong, whichever camp you're in. There's definitely kind of like assumptions that are made about that person. I'm older, so I have a bit of everything mixed in, whether it's far right, far left, Buddhist, whatever it is. I'm idea agnostic, I guess. I'm not attached to any party or person. But in Las Vegas, there's no denying that right now there is uncertainty. So we can
Right.
agree on uncertainty.
Yes, we
We
can.
can disagree about where it could end up. We could disagree about the reasons for it or how smart those ideas are. But there's no getting around the fact that it's having an impact on Las Vegas. And that's the world I know. I don't know a lot about politics, but I know a lot about Las Vegas.
That's
And
right.
the big casino companies are in denial about it. They both did earnings calls where everything was rosy and peachy. But I talk to these folks when they're not doing earnings calls, and they say things in confidence. They absolutely feel Canada has an impact, and it's an interesting mix of a dislike for America and Trump's policies, but also the Canadian dollar is weaker. So there's a lot of other factors. You can't really point to one. But the trend overall was things were starting to fade a little bit after the bubble. And this has definitely accelerated that level of uncertainty. There's no denying that people have lost a lot of money in the stock market. They have this perception that things are a little chaotic and they kind of want to sit on their money, their cash at the moment. So that definitely affects traveling decisions. It affects where people go on vacation and those kind of things. And that's what we're going through. I
Yeah.
don't dig the narrative of that Vegas is crashing or empty. It's just not true. The numbers are healthy. It was down about 8% year over year in March. But other than that, there are still bodies in the buildings and people are still making money. People have associated some layoffs at MGM with this recent downturn, but that's not really factually accurate. They are constantly looking for ways to increase margins and cut costs, reduce labor. So a lot of these decisions were made 6 months ago, 9 months ago, a year ago, and they're being implemented, and it happens to coincide with some of the things that are going on
Right.
nationally, but
Yeah.
that it's not really attributable directly to any slowdown. So that I see as erroneous in a lot of the reporting, but there's definitely an effect. Canada being one of the bigger
Yeah.
ones.
I want
But
to
in
go
the
back.
grand scheme of things, it would be like if locals stopped showing up in the strip. They don't care. There's no big, huge impact. It's if it's 2% of their business, of course they care. If it's 4%, they care. But locals aren't moving any needles. Canadians aren't really moving any needles. It's more about domestic uh, visitation.
One of the things that I was thinking about as you were talking about people wanting to come here and feeling good about things, or the problem is that now, and for a while now, Vegas has not been considered a value. And you have this great graphic that I totally love that you posted up a while back, and it was so good. And you talked about making Vegas a value again. It's hard for people to read on this, but you talked about anyway. I'll people can take a look at it later when they watch the video. But you've talked about this since like 2018, and before that, you were talking about it. But Vegas is not perceived as a value anymore. I have a friend, talked to her this morning. She's taking her mother to see a particular person on the strip, very great legendary entertainer who I've seen and who's great. Not going to mention his name because it's not his fault. This ticket prices are so crazy. But she paid $200 per ticket to take her mother to a concert. That's a lot of money to me, okay, for an hour concert. Maybe not for everybody. It's not a house payment like Taylor Swift, but it's $200 a ticket. But the fees, it was $596 on her credit card for $400 worth of tickets. Now she's going to send me the whole breakdown. She didn't have it on her phone. I'm stunned at that. And my question to you is, how long can this last? I mean, I went to meet a friend at a pool who came into Vegas, over at the Park Las Vegas pool, or whatever they call it now. I worked there when it was Monte Carlo Park, whatever. And it was 30. I didn't get anything to drink, but he said the drinks were $30 per drink at the pool. I'm talking gin and tonic. We're not talking a Mai Tai with a fancy umbrella in it.
Yeah.
And I mean, how long can this last, my friend? These kinds of forget about getting into the pinky ring, Bruno Mars's place or anything like that, or getting bottle service at the Ghost Bar. Forget about any of that. Normal people can't get a drink at the pool. It's not $30. Talk to me about how long this can last.
Yeah, no, it's a key question, and it's one that I have literally never seen any head of any casino address at all. It's as if it does not exist. The place that it exists in is in every visitor following me on Twitter, complaining about the nickel and diming 24/7.
They do.
That's where it
They do.
exists. I
Mhm.
cannot tell you how many people have said, and if it was 10 people out of whatever my followers are, 200,000, humble brag. If it was a few people, it would be like, yeah, they're grumbling because nobody wants to pay $22 for a cocktail, obviously. But when you have literally thousands of people over the course of, say, a month saying, I'm not coming until this issue is addressed.
That's right.
And I don't think prices are going down, so I'm not coming back to Vegas. So this is all happening I would say it's really gotten to be part of the conversation in the last maybe 2 years, where the companies involved don't have any real growth strategy. They have sold off their buildings and their land to REITs, to real estate investment trusts. Their rents go up, whether visitation goes up or not. Revenue, whatever that does, they still got to pay their rent. So literally the only way they can find new revenue is by increasing fees and finding these little obnoxious ways. And the question is, where's the pain point, right? Because prices are prices. You have to pay for buildings and labor and maintenance and all those things. Those are very real, hard costs. So you have to pay for them somehow. So that is based on the cost of your product. So if your costs go up, the union won a huge victory, according to them. Never mind that people were laid off because of this huge victory, but you have to pay for labor, these increased contracts, right? You've got to pay for every time a glass breaks. You got to pay for everything. So prices are prices. That's capitalism, right? You've got to you've got to price things where you can create a profit. So I don't know how that changes, but a lot of the nuisance things, the parking fees and the concession fees and those ticket fees, those can be rolled back, because I shared an example the other day of the wheel, right? Hope that wasn't what your friend's business was, but that is a big attraction here in town, the high roller wheel.
Oh, no, he's not. That's not one, but that's a big attraction for a lot of people. It's very
But
pretty and all that.
Right. But I shared that those fees have been creeping up over time, so that your $40 ticket has an $8 fee attached. Well, that $8 fee pays for nothing. And that's true. I was complaining about this when I worked at Slotzilla downtown. They have the ticket fee, and then they go, well, let's try a $3 fee. Why wouldn't we try that? See if it affects business. Doesn't affect business. How about a $5 fee?
Right.
Nope, they're still coming. There's still demand. Let's do an $8 fee. Oh, business it's adjusted a little bit, so maybe 7 is the pain point. But it costs them nothing to add those fees, and that's just found money. So for a business like Caesars or MGM, I go over there the other day, 3 hours free parking, right, for locals. Boom. I drive in, it's $35 for everyone. It's event parking. What's the event? There's a movie showing at Sphere. So now your parking is $35. Because are you not going to go to your show at the Sphere? This was at Harrah's Flamingo. Dude, this is a mile away from the venue. They just called it a special event so they could jack up the parking to $35. There's still cars in there. So the short version of this is, when is the pain point? I think the pain point is happening. The demand for Vegas is flat. It's going down. I think this is a contributor to it because people can gamble in their own backyard. That's
Right.
commoditization. I talk about that a lot. The
That's right.
legalization of gambling across the country, lower, lower international travel. You can just tick off the boxes. Vegas is going to have some serious challenges, and it's all great news for me because one, I get to be right because I've been saying this will happen for 5 years, and I think I did that make Vegas a value again thing in 2018 or so, as you said.
Yeah.
So it was an issue then, but it's really, and that green check mark, that was like one place had paid parking and rolled it back to free. So
I like
that's
what
what
you
that
say.
green check mark.
For those who haven't seen it, first we'll roll back parking fees. We screwed the pooch on that, and we apologize.
I'm
This is
sorry to the
obvious.
pooches
Yeah.
out there.
Well, that's what this
But
is obviously what you think should be happening, and I think it's so great.
and the core of it is they are making short-term decisions. These are people, very intelligent people, smart business people. They're making decisions that work for them that day, for that quarterly report. But they don't think about the fact that cumulatively, everyone can rattle off 10 completely asinine things that is
Right.
making them mad about Vegas. Those drinks, Vegas is also compared to itself, its past self, which is a problem because when you were a cocktail server, you were giving out drinks
Oh,
as fast as you can. Well,
all day long.
now because you don't want to overserve, so it's one every 20 minutes.
Oh, is
If
that
you
what
can,
they do now? I did not even know that. They
yeah,
do.
they do it on the machines, and the cocktail servers are trained. You don't just bring a constant stream of drinks. You drag your feet. You take longer to make it. Oh, that was another cost-saving thing they did. They made cocktail servers make the drinks. So they're in the back with these robots
Yeah.
pushing the drinks in, and the machines making the drinks. So those
Oh,
service
gee.
bartenders are long gone.
Wow. Okay.
Just another robot taking I just shared a video today of one of those carpet cleaner things. I'm like, that's great for the union. They got a raise for the people that are
Yep.
still members. Other people are fired, and this machine just took the place of your whatever. It's
Wow.
complicated.
Now let's go back to what you're saying because you predicted this. I mean, this is ridiculous. But as you're talking, I'm thinking about how, we know that Vegas used to be perceived as a value. One of the things about Vegas that's always been magical to me is people will come to Vegas, blow money. Most of the time they lose their money, but they leave with a smile on their face. I mean, the plane out of Vegas on a Friday night is pretty quiet. Okay, I get that because people are probably hungover and whatnot. And I'll get them next time, but they're happy. And you ask them, they have a certain amount of money. Your average person, they come to town with a certain amount of money that they know they're probably going to lose, and they had a great time. That used to be the magic of it. We fleece you and you enjoy yourself. Now we're not even ashamed of it. We fleece you just very obviously. And if you go back, and I know you have, and you see the movie Casino, the last 4 minutes of Casino, when Robert De Niro talks about Vegas, and now if you want to comp, they want a social security number, all the stuff that has happened as a result of the corporate takeover of Vegas. And I mean that if you have not seen the movie Casino, y'all have to do your homework. But the last couple of minutes, it's just so predictive of what's happened here.
Yeah.
And hasn't changed at all.
Well, to me, the big question that raises is, how does the survey done by the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority come back with a 96 or 97% satisfied or very satisfied with my Las Vegas visit? I mean, that obviously is the agency in charge of cheerleading for Vegas and making sure that
Of course.
visitors come, that's their bread and butter. And they do the survey, of course.
Right.
But people still have fun. I sometimes wonder if, because we're very much in touch with the conversation, that we hear more of the griping that is kind of disproportionate to the actual experience. Because in my
Yes.
world, I've been writing a blog for over a decade, right? So it's hard to have that kind of bright-eyed, I pulled in and I had to pay for parking. Like, that makes me viscerally angry
Oh, yeah, and
that
I'm not
that
giving
my
them my
first
driver's license. I'm not letting them scan my driver's license so I can park for free. I've actually seen people we know in this town posting on Face or on X how great it is that they just scan your plate when you pull in, so they know. I'm like, okay, Big Brother much, Big Brother much.
Are you a contrails person?
Yes, I am. I actually interviewed somebody about contrails. I used to think that was hokum until I talked to this guy who's an expert on it. We'll do that on another occasion. But going back to what you were
I
saying,
called it.
yeah, you did. I wasn't for a long time, and I'm telling you something. You go out there. One day I went out and looked in the
Oh
sky,
boy.
and there were 4 like cat claws, and I went, okay,
This is why we only talk about Vegas.
okay, but anyway, so but here's the thing. I totally lost my train of thought. But gaming executives remind me of politicians left and right who do not hear the public. They do not care what we say. They live in a bubble. Everyone around them tells them how great it is. The beaches are crowded. Everyone's having a great time. That's all they hear. They're not dealing with the people like you and I are. They don't know real people. And that's very common among the elites.
Yeah, there's not a lot of folks like whenever I think about this, I think about Derek Stevens sitting at the bar at Circa, meeting and greeting, schmoozing, glad handing his guest. There is no better focus group than sitting at your own bar.
That's right.
I love, I'm sure Mr. Hornbuckle, I like Mr. Reed a lot, but these guys are not sitting at the bar. They're getting kind of that trickle up information and they're looking at money and the stats and the revenue, and they're kind of making decisions in that bubble. And everybody's saying yes to them, by the way. There's
Of course
nobody.
they are.
I had a meeting with back when I worked at Caesars, Gary Loveman had we had a little town hall, and I had the audacity to ask a question, and it was just like every executive in the room looked absolutely mortified. Like I said, it's not a criticism of what we're doing. I'm just, because I think it had to do with the quad, and he was announcing the rebrand of the quad. And there were a couple of people I remember, I looked at them and I'm like,
don't put your finger up. Don't ever do that in those meetings.
No. And yeah, because then you're a target. And I can't say that day I talked about the quad, but that was one of those things where everyone around the executives at Caesars were like, oh my God, that's an amazing idea. Quad's a college thing, blah, blah, blah. A couple of weeks later, it was like, the number 4 is really bad luck for Asians and Asian gamblers. Okay. Are we going to really name a casino quad? Whatever. But it's kind of like that happens now. They're very insulated. And they look at that survey from the LVCVA. They're like, 97% of people are satisfied with, what we should do? Raise some parking fees. Because if nobody's mad, why are we leaving that money on the table? Well, the good news is that I think some of these things will be rolled back, like it says in my fake Make Vegas a Value Again ad. I think some of those things will be rolled back. I think casinos haven't had to compete in a long time, and you're starting to see these kind of off-strip casinos get into this world of like $2 hot dogs, and we're only going to have 3-2 blackjack, not 6-5. We're only going to do 0-0 roulette. So, that's that middle section where it says we're done changing the rules to squeeze every last penny out of you. Well, Silver Sevens, Ellis Island, Virgin, Rio, Palms, these places they've actually made headlines for, we're not going to do 6-5 blackjack anymore. We're going to do 3-2. Well, that's doing what this poster advocates, which is we're going to get enough money. We're not trying to ream you. We want you to have a good time. And if this matters to you, we're good with rolling this back. Parking fees are always going to be kind of a pain for me because that's the first and last interaction you have.
That's right.
When you drive in from California or wherever, it doesn't affect people flying very much, but the folks that drive, you're hitting their wrist with a ruler. The minute they walk in and the minute they leave, you're getting dinged. And it's not a $5 thing anymore. It's not a $10 thing. Like you said, during events, it could be $50. downtown, the Golden Nugget charges $50 for parking if
Wow.
anything is going on. Part of that is they just want to have room for their patrons, but somebody seeing that sign shared in social media, I'm never going to Vegas again. I'm going
Right.
to my Native American tribes casino in my neighborhood. I'm reducing my trips from 10 to 1 to Vegas this year.
Yeah.
The numbers don't reflect a huge upheaval, but they're starting to.
The numbers, according to the experts, are the worst numbers in 4 years in March. That's a big deal. And they're trying to say, oh, well, they're down from last year because it was Super Bowl, and this, and they always make these excuses and that. But the long term thing that we're talking about is the idea that Vegas is not considered a value anymore. Now, what's going on? You and I've talked in the past about F1. What's happening with F1? It's continuing, obviously. What are the people you've talked to who are most affected talking about? Because, I mean, I can't believe how horrible it makes the strip look for months and months and months. I mean, it's just destroyed the beautiful strip that we used to have. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm a kind of an unwavering hater. Some of that is it really is the impact of F1 on other businesses in Las Vegas. As has been much discussed, it benefits probably 4 casinos. It's detrimental to many, many others. It's detrimental to small businesses. The disruption is unbelievable. The most visible example is that it blocks the possibly the most iconic photo op in the world, the Bellagio fountains. It blocks it for 3 months, 4 months. I have been fighting to get them to move F1 off the strip. Nobody listens. Well, they listen, but they're not doing anything about it. And so it looks like they're here to stay. The great news is they have built a beautiful headquarters and attraction, and it just opened. So they have go-kart racing. They have a little museum. There's interactive exhibits. It's beautiful. It's a beautiful building. They've spared no expense. It was very expensive. And it was at that moment when they built that thing and opened it, I'm like, the chances of this
Yeah,
thing going away.
they're not
I mean,
leaving.
all their numbers are down, viewership numbers are down, ticket sales are down. Like it fell off a cliff from the first year to the second year. They were giving away rooms for $30. They were comping them for anyone who asked. So the business aspect of F1 is kind of a disaster. It's a disaster to the valley. But what a beautiful exhibit. And I try to stay objective because I don't care about sports or cars or whatever. It's a nice addition to Las Vegas. If you're just talking about that building and the go-karts, the kids are going to love it. All the F1 fans are going to make a trek to Vegas to see this place. But overall, it really has been a disaster. They're wooing me because they're very invested in changing the narrative.
Yes.
I'm
They
just
tried
not
to.
going for it
No, they
because
tried to schmooze you. And
yeah,
when you said just now, and you were talking about, I've not been to this new attraction, but when you were talking about the kids, I was thinking about and this is how much Vegas has changed in all kinds of ways. When Steve Wynn opened the Mirage, and remember they banned strollers. Do you remember that?
yeah,
And Steve Wynn said, I don't want the kids. I want mom and dad. He famously said that. He was absolutely right.
yeah.
When I was a kid, all we had was Circus Circus. Okay, that was it. That was the only place we could go because
Yeah.
they had the circus acts in the middle and that arcade upstairs. So my parents would take us there once in a while. We had a good time. That was it. We were not going into where even the casino where my dad worked, which was the Riviera. If we did have to go there for any reason, they ushered us through as quickly as possible. There was no hanging out in the casino. But now we're building attractions for children. It's just, as a native, it's just so odd to me how it's all changed.
Yeah, people are bringing their families anyway. So if that's true, against my best efforts to keep them out, I've been on national TV programs talking about what a bad idea it is to bring kids and how it kind of ruins Vegas for everybody else. But given that people are still bringing them, they're still bringing their dogs despite my best efforts. Why not appeal to them? And F1 has no casino attached to it, so I think that's a pretty clear separation. But I don't know if we ever solve this issue of like video arcades in casinos, bowling alleys in casinos, movie theaters in casinos. Like it's such a weird. If you go
Yeah,
into one of those video arcades for kids, every game is like a slot machine. Literally you don't get money, you get tickets, but it's the same thing. You get to spend your ticket money on prizes and goods. It's all gambling related. Probably just trying to, you know, get into their brains early about how
that's
much
right.
fun it is.
Yeah.
And the turning point was when the Horseshoe closed its massive sports book and turned it into an arcade. I think it's just called the arcade or something clever.
Wow.
But the reason they did that is because a video arcade game earns about $300 or $400 a day, the exact same as the average slot machine. So it made
Interesting.
sense
I
economically.
I did not know that.
If people are bringing their kids, that's revenue that's not being collected. It's like a parking fee. It's like a kid fee.
Okay, here's a question I don't know the answer to, and hopefully you do. Do they tax arcade games like they do slot machines? Because as people know, they maybe people don't know, they tax you per slot machine, they tax you per table. All these things are taxed for gaming. Do they tax for arcade games the same way?
I don't think so. I think that's like any other business. It's not because it's not gaming related. So that might be figured
Interesting,
into the value of that machine
right?
equaling a slot machine because that doesn't make intuitive sense to me. Like I can't see a kid sitting in an arcade game for 6 hours like I do at video poker. But maybe the fact that it's not taxed the same way increases the revenue that it generates. So it's a great question.
Mm, that's that
I
is.
don't believe it's treated like gaming at all. So
Well, when you say you can't see a kid sitting there for 6 hours, I mean, we years ago, we had a tragic case, as you remember, when a child was killed at State Line Casino, one of the casinos, and she had been basically dumped in the arcade at like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning by her father who was busy gambling. I've seen children sleeping on the floor casino carpet while their parents were playing slot machines. I'm sure you've seen it too. And so there are parents who don't care. They'll give their kids $100. Say, leave me alone, kid. I'm going to be at the 21 tables. And who's to tell the parents they have to go get their kid? I mean, that's the problem too.
yeah, that's why they have these little what do you call them? Galaxy Quest or
Yeah.
what are they called? Kids Quest? I
Whatever. I don't
forget.
go in those
Yeah.
places.
Oh, Galaxy Quest. I think was a movie. But anyway, it was.
No, what I know is Kids Quest, or we know what we're
Yeah,
talking about. It's basically an
yeah,
electronic babysitter.
yeah. They don't really have them on the strip, but the locals places love them.
Well, yeah,
There,
because people, mommy and daddy are going to play the slot machines, and kids are going to, run through the whatever it might be.
yes.
Yeah, but you're right about that. It really is grooming kids to get into gambling. I was not aware that they did that with the little slip of paper. Now, so I'll tell you something else that's weird to me. When you walk through a casino and you don't hear the money coming out of the slot machine, that I really miss. It's just not the same, is it?
I would say no, but it's interesting because I read this book, Addiction by Design. It's a really good book about kind of the psychological aspects of gambling. And when they changed from coins to paper, people did not gamble as much. Shocker,
Ah,
right? So now the audio on slot machines has a completely fabricated
yeah,
sound
I
effect
heard
of
that. It's
coins
horrible.
dropping.
It's
And
horrible.
it's because yeah, I'm surprised they haven't figured out how to like you lay your hands on it and they get gritty like they would from the coins. Like if
Okay.
you want to simulate the experience, I have so many fond memories of like taking my grandmother. She got up off of her deathbed to go to a casino because she loved gambling so much, and she hit at the Golden Nugget. When it's dollar coins, it doesn't have to be that much to be super. And we just filled up these buckets with coins. I've
Wow.
never seen a human being happier. But that, yeah, no, but I think that the circularity of our conversation is that there's an experience that Vegas provides or used to that is completely unique to Las Vegas. And that experience was free drinks, coins,
Yes.
uh, showgirls, and like those things have been chipped away. There are no real showgirls anymore after
Yeah.
Jubilee. There's some that act like showgirls in shows, and the ones on the sidewalk that take a picture with you. But so there's a lot of really bad things that went away, as you know, like sexual harassment that ended in
And that was so much fun back in
1994.
the day when I worked in a casino. That was normal. That was every day. Nowadays we'd be in HR. I walked into work one time. One of the guys I work with said, I had a dream about you last night. And I said, really? How much do you owe me? Okay. That's how we started our day. Okay. And he didn't, I didn't consider that harassment. This is how we talk to each other.
You
It was
should have,
banter. Oh,
but
come on.
that was the culture. No, I saw
That
some
was
the
the
other
culture.
night, an executive at a casino rounded a corner and kind of bumped into a cocktail waitress, and he held on to her. And he's like, "Oh, you're the only cocktail server I want to bump into." And she's just like, and he held on to her.
That was
And
all day,
she,
every day before. These girls are
I
babies
know,
now. You can't handle
but
it. Don't do that job.
it's better that it's not condoned now. Because I asked her, I said, if you want, I will tell on him. I don't care,
Wow.
because that was inappropriate. It was sexual. She's married. I know her from going there way too much. So I offered to, I'm like, I'll speak to the owners. I know them. I'll take care of this. And she's like, no, it's, because if you're sassy like you and
Right.
things just bounce off of you, that's one thing. But young women should not be forced to be like, "Oh, okay, I'm going to laugh at this joke," or because that was the culture of Vegas for
Yeah.
decades.
No, I
And
know. You're
Steve
right. Not
Wynn's
everyone's like
departure
me. Yeah.
didn't exactly change it. It changed it a
Right.
little, but day to day, these poor women, it's like, and if you make someone mad, you could get blacklisted. That still happens. You could still get a bad shift. You could still be assigned to an area of the casino that doesn't make money. Like, there's still that. And
Oh,
there's still presidents of casinos who are like the biggest hound dogs ever.
oh yeah. They picked a
I'll tell
single
you their
mom.
names if you want to
Well,
know.
no, that is true. And I'm not making light of sexual harassment because that should never happen. And I don't think I was ever sexually harassed, maybe the way they define it now. I never had anybody say, sleep with me or we're going to fire you. I never had any of that kind of stuff.
Wow.
But I know, well, I guess I wasn't hot enough. But I know that a lot of times there have been cases, certain casino executives, probably a lot of them, would go after the women who were working in the good areas, like the 21 pit, whatnot, who were single moms, and they knew they were dependent on that job to feed their kids. And nobody should put anybody in a position wherever you work, where if you don't sleep with them, you lose your job. I've never, ever had that. Whenever they'd say something to me that was off color, I would just, come back at them with whatever. And we'd both laugh and it would be over because they knew I wasn't sleeping with anybody else at work. So they weren't going to get on my list. Okay. They weren't going to be in the rotation. But so it depends on who it is. But you're right. I'm more sarcastic than most. I can defend myself, but somebody who's not like that should not be put in that position.
Yep. And that culture of harassment in the workplace is making it harder for bloggers to have sexual intercourse with attractive cocktail servers. So on the record, I think it's very detrimental because I'm a feminist. Did that
Oh
go
my God.
south? Okay, so
No,
back
no,
to the economy.
it did not go south. But no, but a lot of stuff has changed, and there's banter that's harmless, and there's stuff that's harmful to people, and even banter. Some people don't like to joke around about it, and and there are times that, like, I'll give you a quick example, and I put this in my book, Cocktail Waitress Wisdom. Little plug. There was a guy I worked with who used to like to joke around with me. He was married. He wasn't hitting on me, but he joke around. So one day I was serving drinks in the poker room where I worked for 8 years. I love the poker room. You either love it or you hate it. I loved him. But as I was coming up behind, he was standing up, getting ready to get into the box, play the game, deal the game. And so he was standing up, waiting for the dealer to get up. And as I walked by behind him with the tray of drinks, trying to get over his hand, he put his hand behind him like this. Okay, so I'd have to scrape my crotch across his hand was the idea.
Yeah.
I was
He
so
wasn't
livid.
hitting on me.
No, no,
What
no,
what
you gotta
alternate
listen.
universe are you living in?
You're gonna be
That's
proud.
some
No,
sexual harassment.
you're
Okay,
gonna
go
be
ahead.
proud of me, okay? I was absolutely seething. I was so mad because this went way beyond joking, okay? This is completely out of line.
Yeah.
So the next time, then I didn't say a word to anybody. Next day I came to work, I get him in the back of the poker room, and I said, "I'm gonna say this once. You do that to me again, and I'm gonna dump my entire tray on you. Hot, cold, sticky, whatever." And he started to speak. I said, "No, no, no, don't speak. Do not speak to me." I will dump my entire tray on you. And then you can tell the floor guy why the boss, why you can't get into the box. Okay. When I say get into the box, people, it's a poker term. Okay. But that's what I told him, I said, don't do it. But that, to me, that's a better way. I'm not saying everyone should be like me, but that to me was a better way to handle it than to run to the boss and be the little girl. And he did it and da. For me, that was the way to handle it. It was better because it was more effective because he knew that he had crossed the line with me and this nonsense was over. But sometimes, anything someone says, you look nice today, or I like your pantyhose or whatever, and somebody goes crazy. And that's, you shouldn't really, it's hard to be in that environment and work in that environment if you're that sensitive, but still professionalism, is important no matter what you do.
Yeah. I think it's getting better, but it's a joke if people think that's,
Yeah.
that somehow like the Steve Wynn thing or new
Yeah.
HR policies have changed. I literally saw it 2 days ago and I was right next to it. And I'm like, wow, if you're doing that in front of your customers, that's
Yeah.
another level of,
Yeah.
yeah,
Imagine what
but
happens.
everybody in every restaurant in town has slept with each other. Everybody in every casino has slept with each other. It's a very gregarious group of people. But
Yeah.
there are
It is.
people who are definitely victims of, there's a power dynamic, a money dynamic, and I'll keep fighting that fight because I said it jokingly, but I am a feminist, and
Mhm.
so I was ready to go to the mat for her. If you want to 86 me because I'm causing trouble, that's fine too. But I'm going to stand up for somebody who's a victim of. And the sad part was she didn't see it as harassment until I asked her, "Did you feel uncomfortable?" And she's like, "I absolutely felt uncomfortable."
Mm.
So, as you know, in that business, you either get used to it to a degree, or you're just struggling every day, and nobody wants to be struggling every day and crying and upset and going home to their spouse, kind of
Right.
describing these horrible things. So you kind of just like, it had better roll off your back. And you could equate it to tipping. Like there's people who just get used to being stiffed because when I ask them, like, do you realize you were stiffed by everybody in this entire section of the casino? And they're like, well, I don't really think about it. I'm like, you don't think about being harassed? You don't think about being stiff? Like you're like a Doberman
Yeah.
pincher. You just kind of like, I don't care. Where's my treat? Like, how can you be
Wow.
oblivious to the stuff going on and just be,
Yeah.
how do you protect your mental health when that's not a healthy
Well,
situation.
there's a
These
lot
people are,
of, as you know, a lot of drug use. There's a lot of people who are alcohol. I used to work with a girl years ago, and she worked in the sports book, so she was in the same bar area, service bar part. And she worked in the sports book, and the sports book people drove me crazy. Okay, poker players you can get under control. Sports book people drove me nuts. And they'd come up to the service bar. She was just there. Now they come up. Now they want their beer, their coffee, and she would just give it to them. And I would just get so irritated with them. And I said, "How do you stand it?" And she'd say, "That's why I drink all day." No, I'm not kidding, Scott. She would literally have a glass of wine and she would sip on it all day long. And she died at like 35 or
oh
something
my
like that.
God,
Unfortunately, nice girl. I liked
that
her very much.
took a dark turn.
Well, I don't mean for it to, but I'm saying it's very difficult when you're working into that kind of situation. I would just get irritated because I wasn't taking anything, so I would just get mad sometimes. But it's very tough to have to deal with that when you've got issues and you're just doing the best you can to get through the day. And and I know a lot of bars don't serve real Baileys in the service bar. They don't even have it because the employees
Yep.
are drinking it all in their coffee. So there's that.
The
You
worst
know,
thing that can happen is that the customers know where the service bar is,
yes,
because when at the place I was talking about, I sit right near the entrance and they've rearranged their whole casino for this temporary service bar. And so I'm playing it. I'm seeing every customer go up there because they kind of got them trapped. Like, can I get a beer?
that's right.
It's
That's right.
nonstop. Once they know where they are,
Yep.
you're done.
That drove me
It's
crazy, but
crazy.
that's one of the reasons I got out of the business before I had to kill somebody. Listen, my friend, always great to talk to you. I love your perspective always, and
Yeah.
God bless you. You're out there in the trenches, and I can't tell you the last time I went to the strip. So I'm glad you're still there, paying attention to what's going on. Listen, we root for our town. We do. I want Vegas to succeed. But we just see a lot of things happening that are going to make it much tougher. And when the economy takes the downturn that I predict it will, and a lot of people do, in other words, houses are in a bubble and this and that. When we go 2008 again, which I think we're going to, Then they're going to be crying for the locals again. And Vegas does not do well in those situations. Vegas is very vulnerable to economic downturns. And I don't want to see that happen. You don't want to see that happen.
Yeah, it's a one industry town. As
Yep.
much as they give lip service to diversifying the economy, they haven't.
No.
And it's when it hits hard because
Yeah.
this is related to disposable income, and disposable income that's what suffers when your 401k goes down and your bank account starts to go down and prices go up. The thing that's sacrificed is luxury experiences and travel and vacationing.
Absolutely.
It's I don't want to be the doomsayer, but yeah, I've been talking about this a few years. I hate it when I'm right about the bad stuff. I'd rather be
Well,
right about
yeah.
the good
We
stuff.
we used to be perceived as a cheap getaway for the weekend. I'm done with everything. Let me go to Vegas for just get away, cheap weekend to Vegas. That is out the door. So when
Yep.
things get tough, even people who don't normally come to Vegas might have taken a getaway. Now they're not doing it because it's a house payment now to do that. And that's what we got to get away from.
And that's just one drink on the strip.
That's not even counting tickets to see a certain rocker. Just saying.
Who was it? Was it Sammy Hagar? We gotta find out who
No,
it is.
it was Rod Stewart.
Oh, Rod Stewart. Yeah,
No, I love it. I've seen him at Caesars. He was great.
he's good.
But $200 per ticket, and then the fees, I'm not blaming those on Rod, but the fees were, where the tickets are $600 instead of $400 because of the fees.
Yeah, there was this big piece of legislation that was put forth to get rid of those hidden fees.
Yeah.
That didn't mean the fees were going away. That's how it was presented. It was
Yeah.
like, well, now there's no more fees on. No, it just means they got to tell you up front. Resort fee,
Right.
ticket fee, service fee. They're just going to tell you up front. It doesn't affect the cost of the thing. The cost is still there.
Yeah, they just have to disclose. Well, that's because we spell tax in Nevada FEE. You know that.
Yeah.
That's what our kids learn really early. Spell tax FEE, children, to learn how to count to 21, and then you can work.
But no personal income tax. Still killing it.
Yo, yeah. Yeah,
I'm
we are.
rolling around in all my money.
Our
Oh,
gas
yeah.
tax is killing us and everything else. Yeah, I know. You're killing me. It's true. They don't even get it. They don't even get it, my friend. They don't even get it. Thank you, buddy. I appreciate you. VitalVegas.com, and follow him on X like hundreds of thousands of people do at Vital Vegas. Thank you, buddy.
Thanks, Heidi. Anytime.
See you soon. Bye. He's always great to talk to, isn't he? Vital Vegas. Follow him. X, as I said, Vital Vegas or vitalvegas.com. Listen, I root for Vegas. I'm from Vegas. I want us to be successful. I want people to have a good time there. But, when are they going to stop plucking the chickens? That's the question. So, at some point, it's going to really damage the economy more than it already has been. That's for sure. I'm Heidi Harris. Don't forget you can follow me on all the socials, Heidi Harris Show, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that good stuff, and HeidiHarrisShow.com. See you guys.